my dudes, and welcome back to the Miking the Press Pass podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm David.
And welcome. Before we begin, what are you herfing on?
Regis USA exclusive Red Label.
Ooh, yum yum.
It's like the go-to.
That's your go-to? Oh, for
cigar.
podcasting, yeah.
Well, I smoke it a lot when I'm here too, because just like this is the only place I can get it.
Yeah, we are like the exclusive like Regis cigar distributor.
That's why this is an exclusive O.
Oh. And
I don't know. It's funny because I don't like. I mean, I'm sure other places carry it. Club Havana carries some, but I don't think they carry these.
Okay.
But they have a very small selection of Regis over there. It's like the only other cigar shop I've ever seen Regis at in the Bay Area.
Interesting. And I'm smoking the Siempre by Dapper Cigar.
It's good. I had one of those earlier today as my shift cigar at Aloni.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's very good. Reasonably priced, tasty, citrusy.
So what you been up to?
Well, I might have got a line on a new freelance gig today.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, not really. I mean,
Money, right?
ish.
Okay.
So it's like
No, it's exposure, David. Think about it.
yeah. Well,
we can't pay you now, but let's say further down the line you get more exposure, you'll probably get more gigs from that.
yeah. I mean, we're talking maybe like $75 a week, maybe.
Oh.
Yeah. But I like agreed. I was like, you know what? Because she was pretty cool. She's just starting this news group for like Indian and South Asian people. So it's like all the angles and all the stories or things that community is interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And while I don't have a lot of experience with that,
With those ethnics.
with those specific ethnics,
Yeah.
yes. She's like, well, I just read some of your reporting in Spotlight, and the Weekly and stuff, and you cover these issues already. You're covering immigration, and you're covering poverty, and you're covering representation of Indian folks in government and all this stuff. So it would really just be like kind of sharpening the angles and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, sure, that sounds interesting. And she's like, well, I can't pay much. And I was like, okay. And then she said it like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, wait a minute, how much are we talking here?
Mm-hmm.
And so I told her what I normally make for like a freelance gig, and she's like, I probably wouldn't be able to pay that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm more interested in like working with people that like I can have a clear dialogue with and stuff like that. And so I'm willing to kind of like look into it, and then just pay me what you can, whatever that is. And because basically it amounts to she's like in the very, very early stage of like she can't cover all of the stuff that she needs covering.
Mm-hmm.
So she needs just another set of hands basically to cover other things, because she can't be in 2 places at once or be doing 2 things at once. And so I was like, yeah, that's fine. You seem kind of excitable. She's like, well, the money that I would pay you would basically just come out of my pocket. And I'm like, okay, I'm sympathetic to that. And I was like, sure, why don't we like look into it? And so I might start doing some writing for her. I don't know. She's one of those people that like interrupts you every time you start talking. It's really annoying. Like every time I start talking.
Oh, okay. She gets like super excited, or does she kind of wants to bully you around? I don't know.
I don't think it's mean-spirited. I mean, I think part of it is that endeavoring to do this, and she's a reporter too. I mean, she has a background in journalism, so she's probably a pretty assertive person, because we tend to be pretty assertive.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she's just kind of excitable. And so, I mean, it was nice enough to talk to her, but I just told her, I was like, look, just email me details, and she's like, well, could you take on like 3 stories a week? And I'm like,
not for the money you're paying me.
I'm like, I'm not gonna commit to that.
Uh-huh.
You send me some stuff. I'm like, it really just depends on how much work it is. Now, if I can crank out those 3 stories in like 3 hours, like, sure, whatever, just be like picking up a shift at a cigar shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 hours, $75. Like, especially, like, see, I don't know how she wants to do it, because if like she's like, if it could be under the table in some way, then that would be great.
Yeah.
Like, if it's $75 cash.
Well, it sounds like if she's paying out of pocket, that sounds like what it's going to be.
Right, so I don't really know. She's like, she doesn't have a nonprofit status yet, so she's looking into getting that. And she's like, and so, there'll be more opportunities as the company grows. And I'm like, all right, that's a big if, though.
Yeah.
I'm like, but, I don't mind, us helping each other out. Like, as long as it's working for me, it's not too much of an inconvenience. But I don't want to commit to something that I don't know how much. She's like, well, it wouldn't be too much work for you. And I'm like, right.
What does that mean?
Right. Too much work is like what? I don't know.
Well, don't forget, she's probably Asian, so a lot of work. Not a lot of work is probably a lot of work for you.
Well, she's Indian. So
yeah,
at least
Asian.
She sounds Indian. So yeah, not a lot of work might be like, you can.
It's like that Kingpin thing, where the guy like bowls a lot more frames, so he has a higher score. It's like, oh, you English, you only bowl like 10 frames. You do 20.
Oh, so he's got like a higher average because he bowls 20 frames.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Maybe it's like that. So we'll see how that goes. Certainly not something that's like a money-making endeavor, but she seemed nice enough, and she seemed to need help. So if I can help her then and make a little bit of money on the side, that might be worth my time. Maybe I could learn more about Indian people and stuff.
Yeah.
So that would be cool, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Know some stuff about them.
Uh-huh. Where you can get some good food. Where's all the naan at?
What's that episode of Simpsons where Apu pretends that he's married to Marge?
I don't remember that one.
It's really early.
Oh, okay.
He doesn't want to go through with his arranged marriage.
Oh, okay.
To Manjula.
Mm-hmm.
And so he pretends that he's married to Marge, and like he asks Homer really quickly. He gets this letter while he's at the Quickie Mart, and he opens it up, and a lotus flower like slides out, and he's like, oh, and he's like, oh, you hate lotus flowers too, man? Don't get me started. And he's like, no, he's like, he's like, this is the sign of my arranged marriage, and he's like, oh, and then so the mother calls, and she's like, yeah, see, I already got married, Mom. Yeah, I just no need for the arranged marriage, no big deal. Okay, talk to you later, love you, kisses, bye, click.
Uh-huh.
And then fast forward a little while later, she's walking up to the store, like walking up to the Quickie Mart, and he's like, oh my God, it's my mother. And Homer's like, yeah, so? And he's like, she's here to meet my wife? Okay.
Uh-huh.
The wife I told her I had? Uh-huh. I do not have a wife. And he's like, oh, that's probably shouldn't have told her that he had one then. And so she's walking up, and she slips and falls, and he's like, yes, that bought me some time. So he eventually asks Homer to like let him pretend that he's married to Marge. And then Homer drives home, and he's like sitting on the couch, and like Apu is like on his heels, but he forgets to tell Marge like the second he comes home, and he's like, oh crap, he sees like Apu walking up. And then so she comes in, and she's like, oh, hi, like, how's it going? And he's like, oh, yeah, that's right, me and Apu are married. And he's like, and then like Bart and Lisa walk up, and she's like, Mom, can we go to the park? And he's like, you did not tell me that I had 2 kids or 2 grandchildren. And then Maggie's like simpers on it. She's like, oh. And then they're talking about like later Bart and Lisa are talking to the grandma. Mm-hmm. And they're like, can we ask you about your dot? Sure. Mm-hmm. What's the deal with that dot? Uh-huh. Does it change colors when you're mad? Uh-huh. I don't know. You tell me. Nothing yet. Uh-huh. It's like, surely you children are aware of your Indian heritage. As long as you have absolutely no follow-up questions, yes. Uh-huh. Yes, we are. Uh-huh. Fully. It's
pretty good.
Yeah. This is more of a long exposition because it's just like tell you what happens in the whole episode, I guess. Get me started on The Simpsons, man. Uh-huh. Anyway, what about you? What's new with you?
Just moved in to a new place. Pretty close to here at West Coast. Probably about 5 minutes away.
Oh, that honeymoon period is sweet. Mm-hmm. Probably the people you live with are all nice.
Yeah, they just leave me alone.
Oh, that's good.
So,
yeah, I remember
that's awesome.
The lady called me and because she used me as a reference, and so she called. I was shocked she called.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, she actually called me and called your other references too.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, I've never had someone call, not even for a job reference.
Uh-huh.
Ever.
Well, I think because it's a family, so they have the little kid there.
Yeah.
So she's kind of cautious, which I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Cute little kid.
Yeah, she's like, he does these martial arts and stuff, and I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, like how would you describe his temperament?
Violent.
And I was like, is this because he does martial arts? And she's like, well, I'm like, I've never seen Mikey get into anything that I would even categorize as a mild conflict with another obnoxious adult. I can't imagine him ever being anything other than just totally relaxed around kids. And she's like, yeah. And she was just like asking me all these questions. It's like just really random stuff. And I was like, oh, this is really weird. Like, she's like, but the one thing I told her, I was like, here's the thing. If you want me to level with you, if you want someone to like come into your household and kind of like be somebody who's like interested and like being involved in your life, and you're like, being like a part of like a communal like kind of family, like you probably don't want this dude to move in.
Yeah.
And she's like, no. And I'm like, no, he's the kind of guy that keeps to himself, and he probably wants to stay out of your hair as much as you would hopefully want him to stay out of your hair. So if you want somebody who's like, we're gonna be a pal around with, and like I don't think that he has much interest in that. He's kind of a keep his head down, do his own thing kind of guy, and not bother anybody. And so if that appeals to you, if you're the kind of family that has like, like has a bunch of people over, and you have like a potluck, and people are like playing like guitar and stuff, and you want someone to like join in on the fun, like he's probably just gonna be like, I want to go to my room and like watch some movies or whatever. And she's like, no, that's great. That's actually like exactly what I wanted to hear. I was like, okay, so that's then that's the guy for you. Like, he's probably like, I never lived with him, but I can't imagine anyone having any trouble living with him. I was like, okay, that's more or less what everyone else told me. And so that's good to know. And like, I'm hearing the same things from the same people. And I'm like, I just want to be like, man, you take this shit really seriously, huh, lady?
Yeah, it's pretty much it's a good fit, because like I go to work early, come home late, and they're not up at all, because they have they wake up early too, or I think they do.
Oh.
And I get home at 11 or 12, and they're out.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is perfect.
Just come in, cook some food, go to your room.
Yeah. That's it. It's cool. And the husband's a gamer. I think we talked about off mic about this stuff, so that should be interesting. And the other weird thing is, like, I haven't lived with other people in a long time, so I don't know how to, like, when you come into a room, like, I don't want to say hi to them every fucking time I come into the rooms. I'm like, say hi once in the morning, and like, I'm just gonna leave.
Yeah, that's kind of a.
It's like, I am paying rent. I'm not a guest, so
yeah, it's kind of awkward because you just don't. Right, but it's weird because you pay rent, but they own the house, right? And they live in the house.
Yeah, they manage it or something.
Right. So it's like,
you don't want to be rude.
Right, but it's not like it is with just like other roommates where it's like, we all pay rent, and this is as much my house as it is yours.
Yeah.
And it's like, you pay rent, but it is not as much your house as it is theirs, because it is in a very real way their house.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I could see how that would be awkward. It took me some adjustment when I moved in with Chris and Marcos, like, just getting used to living with people. Like, I think it kind of helped because I already knew them a little bit.
Yeah.
But like when we had the Bens move in, I didn't know those dudes at all.
Yeah.
And it was just really kind of weird. Like,
me in my sleep, I don't know.
Well, not new Ben. Well, not original Ben. Original Ben was like the super low T one.
Yeah,
remember?
He'll probably come into my room and like tuck me in.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know, you look like you needed a hug earlier, so
here's one, buddy.
I thought,
and here's an extra one for later.
You just keep that stowed away. Like a comfy flannel that you can put on whenever you want. Just like, remind me of like a Happy Painter Bob Ross guy.
Okay, yeah.
It's kind of
no mistakes, just happy accidents.
Super low T kind of guy. But yeah, it was kind of some adjustment period there for me too. Like trying to how do I interact with these people? Like do I have to interact with them? Do they care if I interact with them? Like,
yeah, that's the thing. I'm not really sure. It's the first week, so I gotta.
Yeah,
it is.
What I would do, like what I used to do, is just like I'd walk into a room, and if someone like looked over at me, I would just kind of announce what I was doing, getting some orange juice. like just like that's enough. Like I'm here, I'm getting some orange juice.
Yeah.
Like, hope I'm not interrupting, right?
Yeah, I just want to stay out of the way. I don't really want to bother anybody, so it's like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's just kind of what it is in a communal space, right? You kind of, just make the assumption that... Don't make the assumption that nothing you ever do ever puts anyone out, even though it probably never does, and you'll be safe. Right?
Yeah.
Just go like, okay, oh, sorry, were you guys like watching TV? I didn't mean to like interrupt. I'll be really quick in the kitchen or whatever. And then they'll just be like, oh, he's so considerate. I think you're fine. Do your thing. Use your sous vide machine or whatever it is.
What the fuck was that?
Oh fuck! I forgot Chris left the phone back there. Sorry, everyone. How do I?
Piss off.
How do I turn off the?
I don't know. An actual telephone? I don't know how to work that. This is Android.
Ringers. Here we go. Just menu. Ringer volume.
Technology.
Volume.
Hey.
Booyah.
Mm.
Figured it out, suckers.
Keeping it in the podcast.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. Adds texture, adds flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Really grinds my gears.
I recently got my first unemployment stipend or whatever, bum money, whatever you call it. And they fucking take taxes on it.
That's so weird.
It's like, let me get this straight. You've been taking this money from me.
Yeah, and you're going to tax me on it?
For my whole adult life.
Yeah.
Like, I would call that a tax.
Yeah.
You're taking money without permission to use as you see fit.
Yeah.
To use for other people throughout my whole life, to give it to them and let them use, like, you're a bum, fucking. And then now I need the money.
Now the chickens come to roost.
And you're gonna, like, we're gonna have to tax that money. You mean the fucking money you took from me?
Yeah.
The money you took from me that was my money, you're gonna take more of that before you give it back to me.
Yeah.
As it is rightfully mine.
Mm-hmm.
I just got this whole diatribe with Diana about it, too. She was like, yeah, is unemployment taxed? I'm like, I don't know.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that till recently either.
Yeah.
You don't have to have taxes taken out of it, but you just know that that's just fucking rolling the dice. That they're just going to be like, audit you at the end of the year and be like, you owe us all the money that we got you.
Yeah.
Because you bumped you up into like a half an iota up into whatever non-hobo fucking tax bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Stupid. God, man, yeah, it's like, Jesus, are you fucking kidding me? Like, this is, how can you tax money that is not earned? Like, it's already been earned.
Mm-hmm.
You were just holding on to it for me.
You know, you're like gonna do stuff with this. We're gonna tax it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like, because I used to always
So it's like if you will somebody money, there's like a fucking death tax on it. It's like, what, you fuckers want everything?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Earn $1 taxed. Spend $1 taxed.
Yeah.
Save $1 taxed.
Yeah.
Invest $1 taxed.
Yeah.
Get money back from the government that was already your money taxed.
Yeah.
If you fucking are stupid enough to die, then double taxed.
Yeah.
It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, just how is there anything left at the end of the day? It's just ludicrous.
You can go to Uganda. They probably don't have any taxes.
Yeah, they also don't have like a
What was that skit from?
right to keep your head.
Yeah.
Somalia.
Somalia, there you go.
Yeah.
It's like a libertarian's dream here.
A libertarian paradise. They've been functioning without a government for 20 years now. Because government can't help us with our problems. It's the source of our problems. So come to Somalia. And now you have cholera.
So what you've been watching? Anything cool? Super cool?
No, I didn't really watch much new stuff other than The Vow, which we will talk about. But I've been watching the old Twilight Zone.
Oh, wait.
We go back to that.
I finally came in, guys.
Exactly. And it was funny because just rewatching some of the old episodes, some that I don't even remember. Because like normally what I do is I just go pick through the episodes, be like, "Ooh, that's a good one. I remember that one. That's a good one. I'll watch."
You just don't put like a random one on.
And I just like put a random one on, and then I just let it watch through, like just like play like all the episodes in sequence, and didn't think about like, you know, just like whatever. I don't want to like select a new one every time, so I just let it play through. And it was kind of funny because I started realizing how frequently Rod Serling, who is the showrunner and the writer of most of the episodes,
Oh, he wrote most of them.
Well, most of the ones that are original teleplays he wrote, and then a lot of them were adapted from other things, like you know, Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge or 5 Characters in Search of an Exit. Like those were already short stories, and he adapted the teleplays. But the ones that are like original, like so he does a lot of the, pretty much is the whole brains behind that operation, and. It was just like, I noticed like how frequently in the voiceover narration at the beginning, he'll tell you the characters' ages, and they're all between 35 and 40. It's like, and I noticed, so it's like, it's
35.5 years old.
Yeah. usually 36.
Uh-huh.
Like, I noticed it, I think 6 or 7 times in like I don't know, 18 or 20 episodes that I watched.
Uh-huh.
And, like, he mentions it in, like, about half of those times. The character is it's a 36-year-old white guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, yeah, I feel like this is a little, like, on the nose there because it's, like, Rod Serling writing it. And clearly, he had some issues with his mother or a wife or something, because some of the women that are, like, in the show that are, like, usually the wives or mothers of the protagonists are just fucking absolute battle axes, man. They're just, like, they're cuntier than, like, any woman ever has been in reality. Ever. They're just totally demasculating, overbearing, horrible people. And I was like, man, it's like, what the hell happened to this guy?
It's scarred for life.
Yeah. And the thing is it's not exclusive to that. There's some episodes. As a matter of fact, at the end of one episode, he says next week, he's like, I've been criticized for not being able to write female characters and write roles for female characters.
I'll show you guys.
So when he did, and then the episode's pretty fucking good.
Okay.
Like, it's got a female lead. There's a few of them that have a female lead in them, and there's even I watched one where the lead is a black guy. I was like, that was kind of odd for the times, like the early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah, so I just kind of picked up on some of those tidbits. I mean, and it still beats me over the head. Like, some things, I've been watching Twilight Zone long enough to kind of, like, there's so many, like, there's like 2 or 3 themes that just constantly are coming up, and they kind of start to get a little laborious after a while.
Mama, love me, please.
No, not that. That's a subtext. A theme of the episode is like,
my wife's a bitch.
like, man just makes war, and he can't help it. He's just like, that's the way it is, and like, that's a theme in like a lot of episodes. Yeah, or you see it, how quickly people turn on each other in like times of chaos. That's a theme in a lot of Twilight Zone episodes, or just how like aliens won't be that different than us because they're warmongering, horrible, like. So it's definitely like, it would be woke for the day. I think. Yeah. It would be like if you watch that and you were like kind of conservative, you'd be like, this shit is woke as hell.
This woke media stuff, it has to go.
It's got ladies in the lead.
Yeah.
Negroes in the lead.
Broads.
Yeah. I want it to be all 36-year-old white guys that work on Madison Avenue. And that is a lot of it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway. So there was that. I don't know. I just didn't really watch anything new. I just kind of gained some new insights from something that I've been watching since I was. I don't know why some of these things didn't occur to me previously.
Yeah, you just weren't paying attention to like the age range. You're like, who cares? That's old. That's old as shit. 36 might be half dead.
It only struck me because he tells you. On several occasions. And then the other times where he doesn't tell you, you can still see the guys. Also, another thing I noticed is, speaking of being able to like see how old they are, man,
36 back then was really rough looking.
Yeah. Like, a lot of them, they were like,
you're 36.
I was like, dude, that guy looks like he's in his 50s.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a 36-year-old man. Like, man, life was harder back then.
Yeah.
Fuck it, these dudes look grizzled as fuck.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And all the women are like 25. Like, all of them.
Yeah, that's true. Like, once you get past the age of 30, it's like, get out of here, old lady.
Yeah, grandma, take a walk. Unless they're casting you as like some old biddy.
Yeah.
Right, or some old
Sometimes they even
Alex.
put like old lady wigs and makeup on like 30-year-olds. Like Mama's House, she was like in her 30s or 40s.
Well, they do that a lot with like characters that are, for whatever reason, they're supposed to be like older versions of themselves, or maybe they age because it's a sci-fi show or something. It's like they will just put on like old guy makeup, and sometimes they'll have like one guy. The actors are basically the same age, but one guy's supposed to be like the other guy's dad. They just like put makeup on him, and you're like, dude, couldn't you just got an older actor? Like, obviously they existed because plenty of them are in. Burgess Meredith is in an episode, right? He's in a few episodes, and there's definitely like a lot of episodes with like older actors, and they're usually pretty good. They're usually some of the better actors in the show. And most of the guys that are just kind of your boilerplate white everyman mid-30s dude are just it's not necessarily their acting that strikes you.
Hello, I'm Hugh Man.
I'm Hugh Man. What about you?
Watch this little 2-parter documentary on Sinatra. It's Sinatra All or Nothing, or was it All or Nothing at All? And it seemed like it was like made in probably like the early 2000s. Like some of the earlier footage, they're just kind of commenting on Sinatra dying. And then what they do is they kind of, alongside him playing his retirement concert, all the songs they're playing is kind of going flashbacks and almost in the same vein as Ken Burns' documentary. A lot of voiceover stuff, no real talking heads, a lot of footage, photos, and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, luckily he was a very well documented person.
Oh, yeah. And it just seems like in the early days of radio, of like if you just had a little bit of talent and just was like have enough gumption, you can get on the radio and be famous. Like anybody could be famous back then.
Are you trying to suggest that Frank Sinatra has a little talent? That's just not in line.
Well, he got better with age, but in the beginning, like I was listening to like fucking music sucked back then, dude. It was terrible.
You're talking about like the late 20s, early 30s?
Yeah, that shit was terrible, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, ugh. I was listening to it, I was like, when is all the good stuff gonna happen? And that wasn't later on till like maybe like the 60s, like late 60s.
I would say like late 40s to early 50s is really or to early 60s is like the Frank Sinatra like golden years.
Yeah, really. It seemed like he really came into his own once he made that movie From Here to Eternity or whatever.
Yeah. After
he got the Oscar, and then it kind of revived his career, and then that was like the whole like explosion of Frank Sinatra. And it's an interesting thing to see because like it's not like we don't have stars like that. Because it wouldn't be like, oh, this is like the first time you ever seen like a Michael Jordan ever.
Yeah.
We do have modern examples now. Even like Michael Jackson back then, Justin Bieber, let's say that. He's like as big of a star than Frank was right now. And it just seemed like also too how he's like a multifaceted man. Sure. Like the whole like, I liked how he kind of shunned the mob early on in his career. He's like, I'm not connected to the mob. That's silly. But when it comes down to the Kennedys and their campaign and their run, it was like deep mob ties. And then them kicking him out, then Bobby and with Frank in there and all that stuff, and them like disavowing him from the get.
I think part of it too was that I don't think we have an apples to apples modern example because we don't like there's like this group of guys, and once they all came together, and once there was like, you know, the group, the Rat Pack, like these guys, you start.
I'm glad they used the Rat Pack, not the Clan. That's the way Frank called it. He called it the Clan. I was like, oh, geez, Frank.
Yeah, it's not good. Well, especially because they're a black guy in their groups.
Oh yeah.
Probably not that good, but
yeah, it's kind of funny too. They also mentioned the term with Sammy, like. It was like lighthearted in the beginning. Now it was like a lot more racial jokes towards Sammy. It was kind of like the butt of the joke most of the time. So it was kind of an interesting thing. I don't know where that turn happened. The only critique I have is like I'm not because I don't know the history of Frank Sinatra too well. Place of what time? Because it's just like a streamline of information. It was like. Well, 1960, 1970.
Yeah, especially somebody who that's part of the reason he got the fame that he did is because he was like a multi-generational talent.
Yeah.
Right? Like he was a guy that was making music for what 50, almost 60 years.
Yeah.
When did he die? The 90s.
Yeah, 90s.
Music like in the late 20s, and then so in late 20s, the 30s, really popular in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Like his really popular years when he was like. At the height of his popularity, like Michael Jackson famous, was like anyone else's just entire career, right? So that you know when you get people into it, and those people just stay around, and so it just builds his fan base.
Yeah,
they did this funny bit on Saturday Night Live years ago with Phil Hartman, and toward the end of Sinatra's careers, he started. Like they were just kind of making fun of they were making fun of the fact that he didn't have any fucks to give.
Yeah.
And he started doing a lot of duets with people. He just like show up on people's albums and do duets and stuff because he just like didn't produce his own music. He'd just do duets with people. And so they had this thing where like Phil Hartman was Frank Sinatra. And sure enough, he'd be like, all right, bring him in. All right, strangers in the night. All right, cut it, you're out, get out. All right, next one, right? Like, he's just like being like all business about it, like just like singing like 3 lines from the song, and then just like, all right, get out of my studio, kid.
Yeah. And how he hated fucking rock and roll. It was like fucking trash to him.
Yeah.
It's like this fucking Elvis guy, Beatles, fucking trash. I don't want to hear that shit.
Did you ever read Frank Sinatra Has a Cold?
No.
So it's like arguably the most classic example of like narrative nonfiction, right?
Uh-huh.
And frankly, pun intended, by the way, I'm tired of reading it. I've read it like 5 or 6 times. Like anytime you take a narrative journalism class, they always have you read it, and it's this big like long form essay that ran in Esquire by this guy. Basically, this made his career, Gay Talese, and basically what he did is he just followed Sinatra around.
Uh-huh.
Right, he never got an interview with him because
Mhm.
he's too famous, and
Yeah.
he was but he just like would be in the same places as him, and like follow him around and just kind of like be like a fly on the wall.
Yeah, be it, kid. You're bothering me.
And he's just like, so he's just like in his orbit for like a really long time,
Uh-huh.
and so then the thesis of the time that he's there is that Sinatra has a cold, and while because he's Sinatra, like everything is turned up to 11, so it's just like talking about like all like if you had a cold, it'd be no big deal.
Yeah.
Right, but like Sinatra can't just afford to just like spend, he's got to do all these things and be all these places, and like, and he has to sing, so he has to have a good voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have nasal problems, and it's just like minutia and everything of like his daily life, like more like with this umbrella of like who he is,
Mm-hmm.
like as and then just kind of getting into the nuts and bolts and the operational things of how even when Frank Sinatra has a cold, he doesn't have a cold like you have a cold, right? Like he's just like how much of a like elevated status he is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty good essay if you're ever inclined to read it. It's maybe 10 or 15 pages.
Okay.
So
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend it because, like, if you are kind of like me at this time, where I do still enjoy watching documentaries, but I'm just kind of burnt out of like sports, war, and like kind of cults.
yeah, that's kind of why I was interested in like maybe like you said though, like the class action park. It's like I kind of feel like I just know everything about this already.
Yeah, you'll probably get a little bit more in depth, but you kind of know the gist, right?
Yeah,
it's the story is so famous.
Yeah, it's that's kind of how I felt about watching The Vow, but we'll put that off until you talk about Civ VI.
Civ
You've
6.
been playing the Civilization
6 by Sid Meier's.
Oh.
So this kind of got sparked off. I was watching Chris Davis play Rome Total War or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that looks pretty cool. And luckily I had Epic Games free games on their service, and they actually had Civ 6. And then downloaded it, and it was just like an avalanche of information coming down your way. It's like, I have no idea how to play this game because it's so deep. There's 6 iterations of this game, and the systems within it seems very complicated to me right now, because it's like you could go in total different directions to win the game, either through just like winning outright, taking out every nation state or whatever outright, through religion, or I think the other one's like tourism. I think that's like the main 3. There might be other outcomes you could win, but those are the main 3. And just finding a path in those branches to get there. And it's just kind of confusing right now, but it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I can. Some games like that, they enjoy such great success because they're comprehensive learning games. Like if you're anything like me, you're a linear learner,
Mhm.
right? You learn steps.
Yeah.
And some games, it's like, or some things, like the systems are so interconnected that it's like if you try to like learn this one thread and you start tugging on it and it tugs on this part of the web over here, and you have to like, okay, now go over here and try to like learn this. You're like, anybody trying to explain a game like that to you, explain the rules,
Mm-hmm.
like in D&D is largely linear, right? You learn the basics and then you learn exceptions. But when people describe games that are comprehensive, like web things, like, all right, so you do this, and then so you do that, but this is like it's important for another thing that you have to learn over here. So
It's like
just
learning
kinda,
Go.
yeah, it's just like it's too
Yeah.
like, so when you have all these different strategies, you have to know like how they all play off of one another and what the trade-offs of. And so it's like you can't just learn one avenue and then another avenue and then another avenue. You have to learn them all like this.
Yes.
And then it just broadens out, and then you can start like making the connections when you get past the threshold of a learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is overwhelming and kind of sucks, but games like that tend to have a pretty loyal following of people because they can learn to min-max a system once they learn it intimately, even though it's a really long learning curve. It's like you're like, I just want to be able to like good at like a few things like right out of the gate and then learn other things as I go, and it's like, it doesn't really work that way. It's yeah, it'd be like if I just gave you a character, like a D&D character or like a level 20 character.
It's like, well, what am I supposed to do?
All these things, all this whole list of shit is shit you can do, and you just be like, I don't know how to deal with that. Like, I don't know how to figure that out. Like, this thing's an exception to that rule, that's an exception to the general rule, and it's like, okay. So, yeah, I could see, like, I always get burned out on games like that, like, quickly.
Oh, yeah?
Where it's like, I start to get into them a little bit, and then I just, like, can't get over that hump to, like, learn it well. Magic the Gathering is kind of that way. It's a game that requires you to be able to think like that. And it's just like, I can't do it. It's not that I can't do it. It's just I don't want to often.
Yeah.
It's like I just don't. The video game RPG, I usually will just choose like whole swatches of the game that I just don't even like. Mechanics in the game just won't even use them.
Yeah.
You know, like in Divinity 2, there's this whole like crafting element to the game. You can craft weapons and potions and armor, and like you find recipes and like learn this lore and like get different characters that have different like crafting abilities, and you bring up this little crafting item and you like these thing plus this thing yields this thing, and sometimes you can come across environmental features that are like, oh, it's a cauldron, and in the cauldron, if you combine these things in the cauldron, like which is like a rare occurrence, then you get like these other things as long as you know the recipe. And I just ignore all of it, and all the stuff, all the equipment and stuff that I pick up toward that end, I just sell it off, and just like I'm just gonna buy better armor.
Yeah.
Like, and same thing with like magic. Like I have a spellcaster, and I'll just be like, okay, you're gonna have like fire spells and like lightning spell. You're gonna have like elemental spells, and so anything that's like fire, frost, lightning, water, rain, shit like that. I'll give you those spells, but all the other, like, 5 schools of magic, I'm just gonna fucking not even pay attention to, because I just don't want to manage all of it.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to, right now, I'm kind of, like, not wanting to go back into Zelda, because there's too many options to do a lot of stuff. I just want, like, to get funneled. Like, I just want to play a game for, like, 10 minutes, and then leave it.
Yeah.
There's, like, a time sink. There's a commitment to playing Zelda, especially the travel's not that fast. It's not like as slow paced as like something like Red Dead Redemption, where it's like it takes like 10 minutes or like not 10 minutes, let's say 5 to 6 minutes to get to one part of the map to the other riding a horse.
Yeah.
There's nothing happening when you're just riding this horse. You might run into like there's interesting things that happen in the game where like you're riding down a road in Red Dead and you hear like the sister's like, "All right, boys, get ready. There's somebody coming." Oh, hello, sir. How are you?
Yeah.
It's like
random encounter.
Yeah, so it's really fun to play that game. I think Rockstar did kind of manage. There's a good balance with what they're doing because like you can get into an adventure 5-10 minutes, maybe 15, and be out. And just go back to another thing. Just do a side quest and you're out. With Zelda, it just seems like there's a big time sink. And it's like, come on, can I just get there?
Yeah, it kind of bugs me too. Divinity 2 is this way. Where I'll be like on the way, I'll have like, okay, I got 5 quests. All right, let's just bang one of them out, right? I'm gonna head over here, and then I go head over here, and like, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna kill some guys on the way and get some stuff. I'm like, oh, I picked up a book. And it's like you read through the book, right? You read through the book, and it adds a quest.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, cool. And then so I just kind of go along my way. And by the time I get to like the quest objective, the first of like 5 quest objectives for that quest, I've accumulated like 3 or 4 other quests. And it's just like I'm never going to clear the ledger, right? Like how do I can't, like I don't want to have 25 active quests at one time because I just can't, like, all right, I just find myself going like, I'll just wander around and like just see what's up. Because it's like there's just so many quests everywhere.
Yeah.
You just wander around and you go,
Do you feel the same way with like Fallout 4? Because there's so much books you get, and there's a lot of like flavor text within it, and I'm sure it colors the environment and the world that you live in. But it's like I'm not reading this shit. I'm trying to shoot some stuff.
So it's good in Divinity too. Is usually the text of the books is actually pretty short.
Okay.
And technically you don't even need to read it. Like it just tells you, like if it informs you if you get a quest from it, if you learn something, like it goes like, oh, like there's, you know, this, you learn that this one guy had this 5 pieces of armor that were like strewn all over the area, and like we could find them if we wanted. You know, like that'll be it. That'll be just like, you know, if you want to. And then, but it's cool because there's certain, like, you move on from one area of the game to the other. Like there's different acts of the game, and they're in different, like, massively big areas. And if you just leave that area, you can't just, like, I left the first area because I was just ready to move on, but I still had like 10 or 12 active quests. I was like,
yeah,
like,
no thanks.
You know, because it's just like, makes me wonder if I could just, how long it would take you just to finish every damn quest in one area. It just seems like it would just be tons and tons of time, and I just don't, like, I kind of want too many side quests. Is like, well, isn't there a main quest here?
Yeah,
and that's what I like about Zelda, is that there are little side quests, at least in the old ones. I don't know how the new one is.
They still have little side quests.
And so it's, yeah, but there's like a main rail, and it's pretty easy to return to that because the little quests don't go too far off. They don't shoot off here that shoots off into this quest and this quest and this quest and this quest, and then eventually you come back and make a little progress on the main quest, and then, you know, just shoot like 70% of the game is side quests, and it's like, I don't really need that. So.
Here Space Ghost with something to think about.
What should we be thinking about?
Well, I thought we were going to talk about the vow.
Oh.
And so,
oh wait, yeah. Well, I don't. It's not. I'm just going by the order.
No. So we've been watching the vow, right? The first 2 episodes, and it's about Nexium, or the cult for atheists, as you call it, and
you know, anti-acid reflux stuff. You know, people like that stuff a lot.
Yeah, that is what Nexium is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, that's a drug, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's a cult. I'm like, I think it's a drug. It's a acid reflux drug. But no, we were talking about this last night about whether cult leaders orchestrate a cult from the ground up, or if it kind of evolves into a.
Well, we know for sure that Scientology was like, I'm just gonna create a religion, and he did it.
But creating a religion, or trying to create a religion, is not the same thing as saying I will create a cult. And that's part of the problem, is that there are distinctions between religions and cults that might seem academic, but largely are not. There's a reason why everyone calls Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses and Scientologists cults and not religions. But, for instance, excuse me.
It's not old enough.
But, for instance, like Catholicism is not a cult. Or even other, Islam, a fairly detrimentally toxic religion globally, is not a cult. Like, it is a religion. And so there are some benchmark things that you have to hit, and they usually happen in a certain order, in a very specific way, regardless of what the overarching, shall we call it, engine that drives the cult. The methods are all pretty much the same. And so I don't know that I think there's a possibility that the people that orchestrate the cults don't buy into the notion of like establishing a cult, and that what is happening is just that if you touch certain topics that are like a third rail, that it just inevitably kind of leads down a path. Dominoes begin to fall, and it leads down this path that just, like, before you know it, like, you're indoctrinating people. I mean, not that you don't mean to indoctrinate them, but, there's a reason that a lot of the people get roped into the cults in almost the same ways. You know what I mean? Like, they all have kind of a longing for a sense of
they need a place to belong.
Yes. They need a sense of worth. They feel like their life has no direction. And so it's like, maybe when you try to like put some concept in someone's head or introduce them to a concept when they're of that disposition and you're trying to ameliorate that. Maybe it just leads down a path that just leads to cultdom. That's just the
There's
natural...
like they're pushing, like the people that are leaders of the cult are like, maybe I can make them like do more stuff. Let's try it out.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
Yes, I will have sex with all the women, only me. Okay, that sounds good.
But isn't it more terrifying to think that maybe they're not even fully aware of it now, where it's like, I'm going to control these fucking puppets? Where it's like, they're like, yeah, I'm doing good and I'm helping these people. And it's like, and then it just kind of like, you know, like just that's the direction it takes when you just
it's
go
entirely
down.
possible, like that could happen, but
Yeah. And so I don't know a way to like really tease out whether a cult is orchestrated, but it certainly makes sense if that thesis is even remotely true, why every cult leader, they act so flabbergasted. Like, you're a cult leader, and they're like, whoa, no, what are you talking?
This is not a cult.
This is not a cult. You don't seem to understand. It's like, no, you don't seem to understand what a cult is. You've never read anything about this? First of all, you have to know nothing about cult mentality. Right? That would be the caveat, is that, like, you think that they've read the handbook of how to, like, manipulate people. They've read the handbook on how to manipulate people, and they're doing it on purpose. That's what it seems like. That would be the roadmap theory, that they're just orchestrating it. But it's possible that they've just never even...
Or they're just purely like a sociopath, where they kind of, like, test the waters with different systems that they would use. Like, oh, this behavior that I do gets me the results I want. And then it just so happens that it fits in the system of creating a cult, brainwashing people.
Right.
It's just the most effective way. But it just takes a longer period of time because they didn't read it. They just, whatever they want to get, they kind of test the waters, test the systems, right? So that could be probably what happens too.
It's part of the reason why it took so long for people to really nail down, like, what is a cult? Why do we think some things are cult and other things aren't? And, like, you know, it wasn't until pretty much like the 70s that we really had even the late 70s, where we really had a good idea of, like,
yeah, it's probably like the CIA doing all the, like, weird drug experiments, how to mind control people and all that stuff.
Well, the preeminent researcher on this is a guy named Stephen Hassan. He's the one that developed the BITE model, and the BITE model stands for behavior, information, thought, and emotional control. And under each of those headings, there's like 20 or 30 things on, like, how you, behavior control would, to give an example of the Mormon Church, behavior control is something like what you can wear, what you can put in your body, who you can associate with, you know, what sort of language you can use, who you can, date, things like that. Information control is pretty obvious. It's like, you know, what should you be reading? What should you be listening to? What sort of things are subversive? Thought control, a good example of that is non-falsifiable evidence, right? Like selling somebody on the notion that whatever it is that you have, whatever Nexium, Mormonism, whatever it is, that it works, right? Largely because of the behavior control. If you control people's behavior, then they all seem homogenized. They all seem happy. You can sell them on the idea that this product works. This is what they do in pyramid schemes. They sell you on the idea, well, the product works.
Look at Jim. He's driving a Ferrari right now.
Yeah. And it's like, if it's not working, it's because you're doing something wrong. Because you're allowing a negative thoughts to enter into your head, and it's clouding your judgment. Like, that's
all those thetans are fucking you up, bro.
Right, exactly. So it's just either thetans, or it's like, you know, subversive people, as they call them in the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Was it like if you got clear and there's people trying to make you not clear or something? I don't even know.
Yeah, they just express any skepticism or doubt or rational, logical, linear thinking, then that's just because they're subversive, you know. And so it's just like all these things, and so you can usually just of that and be like, does this organization do, how many of each umbrella thing does it do? And if the threshold is, say, greater than 60% on all of them, or like, say, around half on most of them, and on 2 or 3 of them like 100%, then yeah, you probably got a cult on your hands, like, aggregately. But yeah, I don't know that they necessarily, I mean, that's kind of an interesting question to posit. Do you think that all cult leaders are inherent, like they just are textbook sociopaths or psychopaths?
I don't know.
Because I don't know that there's been really much. I mean, there's prominent cults. I mean, there's maybe been like what, half a dozen of them. Jim Jones cult, the Waco guy, the Manson family, Scientology. I don't know. I can't even really name very many other prominent ones. So to kind of, and most of those things.
There's probably like a ton of them, little tiny ones.
Yeah, there is. My ex's aunt got mixed up in one, and it was like,
oops.
it was funny too because she was telling me about it, and
was that weird one with the Hale Bopp comet? I forgot the dude that they
Heaven's Gate
with the whole like
the Nikes,
the Nike Cortezes, and drink the juice and go into the spaceship.
Yeah,
it's like fuck, it's fucking crazy.
But yeah, I remember talking to my ex after we'd been split up for about a year, and I had to get, I don't know, sign the divorce papers or give her tax forms or something where we had to like exchange things. So I saw her, and like I was just making small talk. I was like, oh, so how are things, you know? And she's like, pretty good. I've had a lot of family stuff going on, and I'm like, oh, well, that doesn't sound
not my business.
That doesn't sound good. And she's like, yeah, my aunt. You know my Aunt Karen? And I'm like, yeah, the kind of sad, lonely one. And she's like, yeah, so she's kind of in a cult now? Where, like, this lady that she knows, like, just kind of started surrounding herself with these people. And, like, now she's, like, eschewing my family and, like, calling... She didn't use the word subversive. But, you know, I was like toxic people or whatever, because they're just like, look, this woman has too much influence over you, and you're basically just doing. So it was just like a baby cult. Like this woman was like starting a cult around herself. Yeah. And I was like, oh wow, I've never seen that like happen from like the, you know, you always see it like once it gets big
enough. Like there's a critical mass of them, right? Yeah. It's like, oh shit, there's a bunch of crazy people.
Right. And
I want to see like the seedling.
Yeah, prominent. You know, it's usually when some prominent idiot gets caught up in it, right? Or Anne Hathaway or whatever, like.
Was she in a cult? I didn't know that.
No, I don't think she was in a cult. I was thinking she was in Nexium, but no, she just had some guy that was like she was married to, like was like a con man, and like ripped her off for a bunch of money and stuff.
Oh dang!
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It was really sad. Oh. But no, I'm trying to remember who. When we get a little further in the vow, I'm sure someone will come on, and you'll be like, oh, I know that person, and that's probably who it'll be.
Yeah, it's like a TV star, and she got caught up in like some. Like sex ring or something like that. I want to say she was like
that's
recruiting like young starlets.
Yeah, that's where it's going. It's just like going like that's the terminus that people started going like, whoa, what the fuck is this? Yeah, like it's like just like it's sex, crazy sex shit. And so yeah, I mean it doesn't always involve sex shit, but
a lot of it does.
In some way, well, that's under emotional control. How you control somebody is you fuck with their sexuality in some way. A lot of like Mormonism or people of other more religious stripes, they just have an oppressive, like, you know, very rigid ways in which they tell you should like have sexuality. But then some of them just go the other direction and they just kind of like just turn you into this fucking just debased monster, like where you're
dumpster.
Yeah. Just and then not in like a good consensual kind of way either, in like a psychologically fucked up, like,
hey man, if you want it, you want it, but you know, you can't force you to want it. You just try it out.
Yeah, it's super scary, but like I think it's more not like the topic matter of the vow that interests me, because I'm pretty familiar with kind of how it played out, at least the broad strokes. But just I don't know, stuff about mind control is like super interesting.
MK Ultra.
Yeah, see, that's like drug mind control, though. But that's also part of you know, the bite model too, is like you said, depriving people of sleep, depriving people of food, and like giving them mind altering substances, and you just kind of keep them in this like fuzzy psychology where they can't really think rationally and groundedly, because they're just trying to like scrape by to like, you know, that whole hierarchy of needs. If you're starving and you're constantly like doped up and like whatever, you
do this, yes,
right, you won't be thinking about things on like a higher level and operational, like somebody's trying to control you, you're just trying to, you know, get the cheese or whatever.
Yeah. Like, that's good. So yeah, the third episode's coming up this Sunday.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting to watch.
I don't know. Are they slated for 8 or 10 or 12
I have no
or
idea.
13?
I don't know. I just saw it. People are there's like a buzz around it. It's like, oh, check it out.
I mean, I just like I didn't until you told me about it. And you're like, oh, it's about that Nexium cult. I was like, oh, I'll watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know a little bit about that. I read some articles and Wikipedia rabbit hole I went down one day. And I was like, wait, they were in something called Nexium? What the fuck is that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, clicked on that. And I was like, these people like went to jail for some super high roller sex cult thing. Like, who else is in it? Like, oh my god, like all these people were in it. Like, what the hell? Like, that's weird, right? How come I haven't heard of this? Because it's not that old. And yeah, it was. But I was right, by the way. It's like the 2010s. Is when it really starts to come to a head. And I think this is
like the first time you ever seen a documentary on a cult where the footage looks like it's within the last 10 years, which is interesting to me because like. Right. Usually it's like old VHS, SD, or not even lower than SD.
It's
like,
all grainy looking and
it's like, what the fuck, whatever.
Have choppy like audio recordings and like, you know.
And the video of the people, they fairly look the same. Like, you know, it's not too far off in the past where it's like.
Right, it's like one generation of an iPhone ago.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, that's like. I remember when that episode of like Westworld was on. It's on in the background. Holy shit.
Yeah, something like that. So that's pretty interesting because it's like, you always hear about it like. From like the 80s or maybe the 50s or something like that, and yeah, it just kind of brings it like a little bit closer to, or brings it like, oh, this is happening now.
Well, the interesting thing is not that it's happening now, because Scientology is still happening now, but that so many people, like with the broader dissemination of knowledge that we understand about cults, that it got underway in such a modern age. Because like back in the like 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, like there was no like internet speed travel of information. There was no YouTubers talking about, you know, cults, and there was, you know, and there's a few of them now. Like they talk about these things, or people on their podcasts will talk about cults and stuff like that. And so, and then their academics have been studying it in the meantime, and so there's just like a wide breadth of information. So it's the same reason that, I mean, pyramid schemes are basically cults, but even if you don't think they're cults, it's much more difficult to get caught up in a pyramid scheme now, because all of us are kind of hip to what constitutes a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
Where like back in the 80s, it was like, man, there's really good business. Reagan era, it's just raining money. Like, yeah, why wouldn't I be able to like make $1 million in like 40 seconds or whatever? Like,
yeah. That's good. So what's next? Oh, can I play it now?
Play what? No, that was a something to think about.
Oh,
it was just like, you know, like, do they start, like, are they orchestrated in this way, or are they, you know, are they sociopaths? Almost certainly. Are they orchestrated, or is it possible that they have, because they get into the operations with the academics of like what constitutes a cult, but not so much the impetus for it, the germ of it, like why and how it starts. What are they focus on the system of the cult and the system that this person like is the architect of, but not so much the motive, means, rationale of like why and like how it came to be about. Did it just grow organically? Like, do you just get subconsciously power drunk and you just start controlling people in this way? And to me, it's a lot more terrifying to think that they're not fully aware and doing it on purpose. Because if they were just psychopaths and they were just they were engineering it from the beginning, it's like, well, they're just monsters, right? Yeah. But if they're not, then there's just something about like this topic matter. And my uncle's assessment about when I was talking to him about flat earthers, and I was like, aren't you curious? Don't you just like want to talk to these people? And he's like, no, I don't want that shit in my brain. He was like, I don't have a high degree of confidence in like my intellectual fortitude to resist, because these people are probably otherwise normal people too, and somehow it's like a disease. It gets in there.
It's like a Jedi mind trick.
And it just gets in there and it just fucking festers and then just turns
Space is fake.
Right. And so like, maybe there's something to that where it's like, you know, if you just
space is fake.
It's like, oh my god, yeah, like,
why are you funding NASA? Well, that's weird.
So maybe it's like that. Maybe it's just like you just try to do something that you think is good in a certain arena. I want to give all these people purpose. And
you're
like,
doing good. You're giving
like,
people information,
give them
how to
community,
be
and like, and then you go down that path just a little bit, and before you know it, like this just railroad car just takes you down this path to a cult without you really even being consciously aware of it. orchestrate it in any comprehensive way, and that's far more terrifying to me.
I kind of liken it to people that are like kind of curious about Insane Clown Posse, and they're like, "What's the deal with these fucking dumb people?" And all of a sudden they're like really into it. It's like, "Oh, you just turn into one."
Yeah.
I've known people that did that. It's like, they're so fucking stupid and stupid clowns.
Yeah.
And then they do some research, like, yeah, it's actually kind of cool. I like their music. It's like,
The poison got in you.
Yeah.
Like, it's a slow building poison and just eat your brain alive. Yeah. I don't know. Fuck. Maybe some things are like that.
it's like
man.
watch hating like reality TV, and all of a sudden you're like just really into reality TV. That's all you watch.
Yeah. Well, I'm a person who hates reality TV, so yep. But you know.
But did you know?
Redondo Beach, California's bird, apparently has a city bird,
Mm-hmm.
is the Goodyear blimp.
That's so cool.
I just learned this today. I was like, because I guess it's like right outside, like where Goodyear, like
It's like the California's official state animal is Chuck E. Cheese.
what
I don't know. No, I'm just making this. It's like almost the same thing.
Yeah.
The Goodyear blimp.
is a bird. It's the city bird.
Yeah, city bird's a Goodyear blimp.
That's just like what? Because they probably didn't have a city bird before that, so it's like, what can we make it? You know?
Whatever, we'll just do it. I don't care.
States have birds and official drinks. That's weird to me that states have official drinks.
It's like the mint julep. Like I imagine some state in the South is like the mint julep is our drink.
Well, I would have to think of if it's anybody's, it's Kentucky.
Yeah, that's what
'Cause
I
that's where the
imagine.
Kentucky. Well, that's not the South.
Well, whatever.
But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't even know what any of the official drinks are. Like, I would imagine in Wisconsin.
Mountain Dew for Florida.
Yeah, probably. Even though there's no mountains in Florida.
Fucking Mountain Dew.
So what will California's be? Drank?
Some drink. I don't know. California, like a 40 or something like that. I don't know.
Nah, it's maybe drank though.
That's the South though. That's like Georgia or Atlanta or so, or Atlanta.
Yeah, I don't know. But
That's
but-
it.
what?
Oh wait,
Another
you
one.
got another one.
Yeah. If a car could drive straight up,
Mm-hmm.
it would only take you an hour to drive to space.
At what speed?
60 miles an hour.
Oh, okay. Take you an hour?
That's it. About 60 miles up to space.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like balloons, like it takes them around that time.
Yeah, but it just doesn't seem very far when you think about it like that.
So if you took like an apple, right, and you look at the thickness of the skin, that's how thick the atmosphere is compared to the size of the apple.
And that's shocking to you?
Some people find it weird. It's like, whoa, I thought it was gonna be like way bigger. It's like it's like a fucking force field. But like when you see pictures,
Well, it is a force field.
it is a force
It
field.
would
but
be. It would be like if you encased it in lucite or something. Like, sure, it would be super thin, but it would basically be impregnable. Like, it'd just be this thing that would stop. You could bounce the apple off the ground. It'd be fine.
Yeah.
Because it's got like this super thin layer of whatever.
yeah, and it's just like when you see actual real picture people from space, you see the atmosphere. It's like super thin. It's like, yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's because when you see people coming into the atmosphere, it's like.
It's like, holy shit! Yeah,
It must be intense.
Well-
Super thick.
yeah. And to imagine too, like a asteroid coming through it, like all that heat from the atmosphere, all hitting all the air particles,
Mhm.
it heats it up that fast. Like just that little bit amount of air,
It's super hot.
you get it that hot.
It's coming in hot.
Yes! Dropping like it's hot.
Another one.
Another one.
Clouds, despite how they look, weigh around 1 million pounds.
Yeah, that makes sense. Big.
Yeah. But you don't think of them as being really. I mean, you fly through them,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh, it's like fog.
Yeah.
It's really weird to think about.
Yeah.
It's like that much. Because it's basically just dirt and water vapor.
Yeah.
It's just 1 million pounds of it.
Shit, just floating in the air.
That's like, how. That's so weird for me to conceive that something that weighs that much can float.
Well, it's a lot of it, and it's like, it's big. It's voluminous.
Yeah.
And
Voluminous.
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 And yeah, it's really big. Clouds are big.
I know. I don't know. I remembered that randomly. I was like, oh yeah, clouds are really heavy.
What's heavier, 5 pounds of hammers or 5 pounds of feathers?
Yes. Both. I remember trying to explain that to somebody one time, and I had to explain it to them like 5 times really slowly.
They didn't get it?
No.
Oh, wow.
It was embarrassing. I mean, it was a teenager, admittedly, but I was like, no, dude. They're like, yeah, but like, the hammer weighs a lot more. And I'm like, right, dude, but 5 pounds is 5 pounds.
Yeah.
I was actually a pound. I said a pound
Yeah.
of feathers or a pound of iron.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, but like, they're just like, for some reason, it like, their brain was conceptualizing of it in like volume when I said weight.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept saying like, you're thinking of volume. Yes, if I have a cubic foot of steel and a cubic foot of feathers, like a cubic foot of steel weighs more. But we're talking about like maybe the pound of iron is only this big, and maybe the pound of feathers is like fucking
The size of this room. I don't know.
And so it's like no, but like it was sort of like
That's borderline almost like the moon is the sun when it's cold or when it turns dark or something like that.
I kind of felt like I was having a moment like that. Sorry, Chris. I kind of felt like I was having a moment like that the other night when I was trying to explain how probability works to Chris.
Oh.
And I was just trying to explain to him like that.
Because you've had that discussion more than once, and I was like, oh, great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because he's misunderstanding that they're different questions.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What's the probability that an ace comes up on the next card? Is not the same question as what's the probability that 8 aces consecutively come up. They're just completely different questions.
Yeah.
And I understood why he was misunderstanding it, and I probably wasn't explaining it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So he just kept like feeding back into the same loop of like misunderstanding, because it was my fault essentially, because I wasn't like articulating it well enough to break that loop of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've had that discussions with people where it's like, you just I with Diana's brother, I had this like, are there more whole numbers or more even numbers? And he's like, what's a whole number? And I'm like,
really? Okay, we can't have the discussion then.
I was like, a whole number is anything that's not a fraction or decimal.
Yeah.
He's like, well, then there's more whole numbers. I'm like, no, there's not. He's like, sure there is. And then like, he tried to get all fancy, and he's like, if you think about it like a set, and the
set's infinite.
includes all whole numbers, includes all even and all odd numbers. And I'm like, yeah, but the set is infinite.
Yeah.
So they're both infinite.
Yeah.
They are the same.
Yes.
He was like, no, but they're... I'm like, no, they are. Just...
Think about it.
Yeah, just think about it, and then let me know
They're
when you...
both infinite.
When you come to my conclusion, which is a very simple conclusion, which is infinite is infinite. Either way. No matter how you slice it, thin slice it, vertical, diagonal, it doesn't matter. It's all infinite.
It's like that whole, like, how long will it take you to get, if you take, half the distance from this wall to here,
Yeah.
and step that many times? How long would it take you to get there?
Never.
Yeah.
That's how long.
No, but think about it. It's like, 20 steps, you'll get there.
Yeah.
Think about it.
No.
No. Half the steps, half the
You'll
distance.
just never arrive at that. It's like that game I was telling you about where I it's really a game to kind of encourage people's critical thinking. And what you do is you give them a proposition. How many miles of railroad are there in the country?
Mm-hmm.
And what you have to do is give me a range, any range you want,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to be 100% certain. And every question I pose you and I'm right, I get $1, and every question you get right,
Mm-hmm.
you get $1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. And you play, and you just say, like, okay, miles of railroad,
At least a one.
right?
Yeah.
So between...
That's for sure. That's guaranteed.
Between 1 and what?
Huh?
Between 1 and what?
Wow, 0.
No, the upper end.
Oh, the upper end.
Yeah.
I don't know, 100. Well, it's because you can make any number up and then make it true.
But you can't go outside. Like, the actual number of miles of railroad has to fall within your set.
Oh.
And so you just say, like if I said how many people are in this room,
Mm-hmm.
and you said between 0 and 4,
Mm-hmm.
and there are 2,
Yeah.
you're correct. But
Yeah.
if there were 5, then you would be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
Oh, yeah. It'd be like 0 to a billion.
Yeah, you just say like some ridiculously huge set, right?
Yeah.
That you're certain. You have to be 100% certain. And like you just say like how many miles of railroad? It's like okay, between 1 and 800 trillion.
Yeah, it's like,
and
okay, right.
I'm 100% certain that the number falls within there.
Yeah.
You just overshoot it, but people won't do that. They will try to get as close to the actual number as possible, and they will narrow their set to get within that. Like if you think there's 45,000, then someone might say somewhere between 25 and 55,000. It's like, why would you have such a narrow set? And it's like amazing how much, like if you play that game with people without telling them what you're doing, like they will lose so much, and it's so impressive that they will lose so much.
Yeah. That's why I think the Price is Right rules makes more sense. Without going over,
Yeah.
you get a better, a closer number to what you actually think it is.
That Price is Right gag in that episode of Futurama is one of my favorite gags in all time of TV. Do you remember that one where with the first episode of Flexo?
Yes.
Bob Barker is hosting the Miss Universe pageant. Flexo steals the tiara,
Uh-huh.
and then it's actually Bob Barker's head in a jar, and
Of course.
and so he's like, I can't believe somebody would try to steal that. Do you have any idea how much that tiara is worth? And then Leela's like $1 million, and Fry's like $100 million, and then Bender's like 200 million or 100 million and one, and he's like, you're closest without going over. It's like so fucking good.
No, I still like that was like, Leela. I mean Amy.
Leela, I mean Amy. Yeah, there's a lot of good moments in that show, but like, yeah, that setup, you're closest without going over, just like, oh man, it's so fucking funny.
All right, next one, the return of germs.
Yeah,
Germs have been around forever, man. I don't think they're returned. They've just been around. Don't call it a comeback. They're
It's
around.
the framing with which we understand
Germs.
So yeah, I was reading this article, and it was talking about how like in the late 70s, we started to kind of get away. Like it was trying to contextualize part of why COVID is such a why a pandemic was able to hit us with such effectiveness at this juncture in society. And so it kind of starts back in the 70s. And it's like, so in the 70s, we started getting away from the concept of infectious disease being a first world problem, right? So we had largely eliminated, smallpox was like the first disease that was just eliminated.
We're the best.
Yeah.
Hooray.
Just defeated a disease.
Yeah.
It's gone. Then we had a polio vaccine. And so we were basically on the verge of having the polio being eradicated.
People, human races, shucking jiving germs, whoa.
Yep. and then we developed germ theory, and we more or less get rid of cholera, right, in the first world. And so we just started crossover dribbling and dunking all over these diseases, and we're like, this is not a problem anymore.
Yeah, we got this.
And largely because there was this period before there was a resurgence of infectious disease. So this was the late 70s, and this was before MRSA was a thing. This was before AIDS became a big problem in the 80s. It was before there was all these pop-up cases of measles that have been happening for the last 12, 15 years.
A bunch of MMR.
Right. It was before swine flu, it was before avian flu. It was all before these things. So there was this gap where research kind of slowed down and started focusing on other things, autoimmune diseases and degenerative diseases like ALS or what's the other big one? Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. And then it started talking about how after that period the get bigger in the country too. So and the writer seems to be impregnating that ideas with all kinds of assumptions that are really neither here nor there. But it's talking about how we started to get this bigger wealth divide where you're getting enclaves of really poor people in inner cities, largely as a byproduct of urbanization, and people are just moving to places like DC and Chicago and Detroit and Philadelphia, greater numbers and greater numbers. And so then so then, like, we're primed with urban density and people that live are largely reliant on public transportation, maybe can't afford to take, like, time off of work, maybe can't maybe live more than, like, one or two people to a household.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they all have to live in, like, one room or whatever if they're immigrants. So that's all set up, say, in the, like, early 90s, right, and into the early 2000s, and continues to kind of carry forward. So that set piece is in place. And so then we had a big SARS outbreak, like 10 years ago, something like that.
SARS not in this country.
No, I just globally. I mean.
Yes.
Right. And so, and there were some, like, people in America that were affected and stuff like that. But largely that pandemic, or the inklings of a pandemic, just kind of fizzled out on its own.
Epidemic?
Epidemic. So, and what happened there is we started developing a vaccine, right? And SARS is closely related to COVID.
Yes.
So it's like we started developing a vaccine, but not a lot of people were really affected by it, and then it just kind of burned out the dead wood, so we kind of stopped investing in that.
Yeah, but there's also problems too with like having it to incentivize companies to make vaccines like that really quickly. Is that governments will tell you have to make this vaccine, and at a cost to them. It's like, oh, we'll pay you back when you get this done. But once it dies off and burns out, like, well, we don't need it. Sucks to be you, bro. Just
Yeah, well, no, the CDC was developing one,
mm-hmm.
and so that was like probably a prudent use of our money, but we just didn't, like, well, we don't really need it. Like, it's SARS, it's gone, so who cares? And then it segued into kind of talking about the state of affairs now in medicine, which since the rise of the phenomenon in medicine in recent years, like since SARS, has been getting away from, like, studying, like, infectious disease, and really there's become a lot of financial incentive to do, like gene targeting.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you get, like, what is it called, CART therapy, right? I wrote down what it stands for: chimeric antigen receptor T cell.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that's, like, this targeted, like, cancer therapy, which, like, if you have to have it, is, like, you know, $500,000 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So companies have all been working feverishly on that, and, like, really not in the interim between when SARS happened and now, not working on even things that would be tangentially related, other infectious diseases that would be somewhat tangentially related. So there's all this infrastructure and, like, body of scientific knowledge. And
Whoa.
oh, did it cut out?
What?
I don't know if it just happened or if I just noticed it. Edit this out. There it goes. Penis.
Woo! Glad we solved that mystery. Man,
know.
all those people with AIDS, we just solved it.
No, so it was just kind of an interesting kind of tour of, like, here is the confluence of these big things that have happened over, like, basically since the 1970s and the timeline of them. And so, like, when you put them all together and you have something that should more or less, relative to science, shouldn't really be like a huge thing, right? It shouldn't be, like, on par with the Spanish flu, because it's like, well, we have all these, like, things in place that are supposed to deal with it, but it's like all these.
But the speed of travel is a lot faster than back then, so a little bit different story.
Sure, but at the same time, you're just, like, better, so much, like, orders of magnitude more better, should be more better at. First of all, we just, like, understand the concept of, like, how the flu is transmitted. That's, like, a lot of the battle right there.
Yeah.
They didn't know that at all, like, when the Spanish flu was the thing.
And that too, and plus, like, science got so good, people just think it's fake now.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, why do you think all this stuff happened? It's like, I don't know, man, it's all fake.
Space is fake.
Space is fake, man.
So I don't know. It was just kind of an interesting tour, and like I said, there was some premises kind of embedded in there where like the author kept using like a few, like they would use concrete examples. I really irks me when fucking writers do it. This should be on the Grind My Gears segment. I didn't even think about it, and but they'll use like they'll have a list of things, and the list of things will be like say 5 things long. And 4 of the things will be very concrete. And then they'll just tack on one last thing on the list. That's just not... It's just vague. It's just super fucking vague. And it's like, it's there to bolster their point. You're like, I like whiskeys. Like Jameson and Johnny Walker and, Bullet and, Booker's and, the other good whiskeys. It's like...
yeah.
It's like, wait, what are the other good whiskeys?
Yeah.
Like, you enumerated these. And so the writer does that at, like, at least 2 critical points of the article where it's like, they're talking about disenfranchised poor people and giving specific examples of, like, why an infectious disease would spread more quickly in a community that is poor, a household that's poor, right? And so they said reliance on public transportation, have like pretty much the examples I gave.
Yeah.
And then in the end, like she just kind of tacks on and like structural racial inequities, like and just moves on. Like that's wait, what are you talking about? Like because if you said structural racial inequities, I'd be like that's kind of vague. What do you mean? And then you would be like, I mean these things that I'm enumerating, and I'd be like, oh okay, yeah, that makes sense. I might quibble with whether those are quote structural racial inequities, but they at least I understand what you mean when you say that. But then she just like she does it a couple times where it's like very specific thing, very specific thing, very specific, very broad and fuzzy thing that doesn't even need to be there because you already have like 4 examples.
Yeah.
Like the rule of thumb is 3, but she's like this like the 6th one in the list, and it's like and other things that are bad. It's like what? Like why are you doing that? Like I don't understand. And like the thesis, part of the thesis,
all the bad things like the gay agenda and all these other things we talked about.
Oh man, so like let's get onto the gay agenda. Conspiracy theory time.
The truth is out there.
The truth is out there, Scully. I want to be Scully. Can I be Scully?
Do whatever you want.
You're Mulder.
Okay.
So you have to say the truth is out there, Scully, to me.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to be Mulder. I want to be Scully.
Okay. I don't even watch that show.
Scully is a scientist and a rational, skeptical thinker, so I like her more than I like Mulder, who is kind of a little bit whiny.
A little bit
And,
hipster.
Yeah, he's a little hipster. He gets away because he's handsome.
Hello, I'm a handsome scientist.
Hey,
What's
the
going
truth
on?
is out there. We will know all the things, the Great Pyramids of Egypt, the Sasquatch, the Yeti Man of China, the unsolved mysteries of unsolved mysteries.
Believe it or not.
But so speaking
So
of
what kind of wackadoo things have you heard lately?
so speaking of gay agendas,
Whoa.
Apparently they're real, according to friends of my old lady's parents.
What's in the gay agenda? I don't know what it is. I've always heard this gay agenda, but what is it?
They're trying to turn people gay.
Oh, okay.
They had this friend, and the parents, my old lady's parents, they took her brother, who is gay, over to this lady's house. And this lady apparently is like somebody they really look up to. And she was going on about like the gays and the gay agenda and how they're like ruining the country and this, that, and the other. And the parents just kind of sat there quietly, like smiling and nodding. And the brother's just like paralyzed, like with like, I don't know, what should I say something? Like why I feel like I'm being criticized here and I like don't know what to do. But he's a kid, he has no emotional maturity to be like, hey, fuck you, you cunt,
Yeah.
It's like so she tells me this, and I was like, oh yeah, like and I just kind of flippantly said, like, oh yeah, it sounds like she's like a Alex Jones disciple, probably watching that InfoWars, right? And I was like, turning the frogs gay.
Turning the frogs gay!
Yeah. And then she goes and she reports back and she's like, oh yeah, that lady loves InfoWars.
Yeah.
She does believe that it's like a mind control, that they're putting stuff in the water to like turn people gay, to like, I'm not sure. But that was like, I was like, wow.
It's New World Order kind of control the population.
I don't think I've ever even tangentially really knew about somebody who was a legit like InfoWars fan, except that one guy at City Council who was like, "You're gonna put it on the police cruisers because they got some real good information," and just like debunking all that fake news out there. I'm like, I don't think you know what that word means, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that really watches Alex Jones. I like watching clips of Alex Jones just because he goes fucking batshit crazy on stuff.
Yeah, it's like watching Macho Man Randy Savage or something.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
you don't take him seriously,
Yeah.
like he's like a real person.
Yeah,
Like you're just like, oh, it's amusing that he's kind of crazy and weird. And
that's one thing that grinds my gears.
what's that?
The whole thing about like pro wrestling and people that are really into pro wrestling, they think it's like one of the highest art forms ever. And they just wax poetically about it. It's like they're just egging on the crowd. I don't understand why it's like a big art form for you.
Well, I mean, you could argue that it's kind of like it's like a dance, right?
It is a dance, and it's but it's the whole idea of like, oh, it's a higher art form. You just don't understand how
Higher.
great this art form is. It's like, all right,
Like John Milius talking about Conan the Barbarian.
well, that kid's really weird.
It's really, has he got lipstick on? It's just some kid we found.
Yeah.
It looks weird.
Um,
But yeah, no, for me, pro wrestling is kind of on par with
wrestling.
yeah, wrestling is on par with like demolition derbies or monster truck rallies.
Sure.
It's
And they like award points to like monster cars doing things. Like, what's the markers?
he
for-
smacked a battle called real good.
He said, why is it a 10? Why doesn't it all 1? I don't
A
understand. why
real big fan of you. It's like, yep. It's like, yeah, like to me, making that argument would be like saying that you don't understand that soap operas are like the pinnacle of acting.
Yeah, I was
and
like-
story writing, right?
All right, yeah.
It's like if you enjoy them,
Fine.
that's fine,
Yeah.
you know. But like to have no self awareness about
it's
like
art.
that it's trash, you know. It's
It's
like,
trashy.
but like,
And it's fine if you like trashy things. I'm not gonna, think. Well, I will think lower of you a little bit, but
but we
it's
all
fine. You can enjoy whatever
we
you
all
like.
like some trashy.
Yeah,
thing,
sure, that's fine.
right? It's
Yeah.
like that's
I like Tortina's pizza.
Yeah.
Will I say it's the best pizza? No, but it's definitely hit the spot where you need it.
It depends on what you mean by best.
Like,
When you want a Totino's pizza, like nothing,
drunk at home.
nothing scratches that
yeah,
itch.
you're drunk at home. You don't have anything in your pocket to pay for pizza to be delivered to your place, but like Tortina's in the freezer. Fuck yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's like I just like people with McDonald's, and it's like you like McDonald's. It's like you're a liar if you say you don't like McDonald's. You're designed.
It's engineered.
It's engineered for you to like it. You can't like. It's like saying you don't like sex. Like you don't like sex is stupid. Like,
It's so gross. You get like, you pour stuff into chicks and like they like it.
yeah,
It's so weird.
it's yeah. That's definitely something.
Anyways, with the crazy lady, Infowars lady.
Yeah, so she's just like, yeah, she reported back and she told me like, yeah, that it actually is. She is a big Alex Jones fan, and she's like, she didn't mention anything about the gay frogs, but I should have piqued her brain a little bit more. But the thing is, I don't want to have to like so like Diana's,
Have her report back, and she has to listen to this gobbledygook.
yeah. And the thing is Diana's parents are a little difficult to deal with already,
Mm.
and so then I
Aren't
have
all
to.
parents are?
No, my mom's coming to town in a couple weeks.
Oh, nice.
That probably should have been at the front of the show, but
Oh.
yeah, my mom's coming to town, and my mom is a sweetheart,
Mhm.
so she's not difficult to deal with. I mean, she is, but I don't find it difficult to deal with her.
Uh-huh.
But like, I could see somebody like looking and just be like, but I get no stress from dealing with my mom because it's just easy.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah,
It's your ma.
it's my ma.
Mhm.
But yeah, so she's coming to visit. That'll be fun. You know, Diana's all excited about it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, she's never met any of my family.
Yeah.
At all. And like the only person that she's ever met that knows me from
You could just be lying about your background. You're not really from the Midwest. You're like from Los Banos or something like that.
that could be.
All these, like, your friend Chris, your friend from the Midwest, he's like actually from LA. He's like, oh, live here.
Just live here.
Like, I couldn't get the story right, so that's why I ignored you, because I wasn't sure on the background.
Yeah.
I didn't want to tie up the lines, and, this lie that we're doing is just, I don't want to, get exposed.
I don't want to be part of this, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's The thing is, though, is if you're gonna lie,
Secret Life of Press Pass.
if you're gonna lie about something, why would you choose like the most like vanilla, fucking basic ass like place to come from? Why wouldn't I be like, I'm from war-torn Bosnia or some interesting thing like that that would make people want to talk to me?
Yeah, my English is so good because I watch American television all the time.
Yeah, I just don't know why I wouldn't like lie to be more interesting, you know? Because like, just boring enough. Like,
I've like people that just like to lie about stupid shit.
sure, I guess, but like, those lies are almost always fabricated to boost their ego in some way.
Yeah.
And to do that, you would have to
You know, I'm like an everyman. I'm from the Midwest.
try to get attention. That's usually what these people want. Is they're attention monsters, and they want attention, and they want you just to idolize them and think they're interesting and cool. But like just saying you're just like this boilerplate like Midwest white guy doesn't do that for anybody. It's like, oh, I don't know, just
Well, maybe you have mob ties and you want to witness protection. Yeah.
Was to protect my identity.
Yes. That'd be bad. That'd be a better background.
Yeah.
You're actually from New Jersey. You're in like.
That's why I like The Sopranos so much.
Yeah.
It's like, hey.
It just reminds me. Sometimes I like to slip in this accent that I made up.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, hey, yeah. It's not really like that. Like, what? I mean, that's what I'm told anyway. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like,
Actually, that would never happen.
That would never happen.
I don't think that would happen.
I just, here's the thing about this. I mean, here, from what I understand from.
Listen, I mean, here, sir.
Do that hand.
Do that
my
hand.
friend.
This is my friend.
Yeah.
I think that's it. That does it, right?
Sure. Yeah. Let's have that do it.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Let's see. Oh, some other news. We added. Did we mention this? We added another person to our fellowship.
I think we mentioned that we were going to.
Mm-hmm.
Probably gonna have him on next week, right?
Next week. Hopefully, we can get Chris on too. I don't know how we're gonna schedule that around, but.
Yeah. Well, even if it's just him, he's the new player. So, but yeah, we've never had Chris on, have we? So. Yeah.
We tried to do like a pilot episode of D&D,
That
but
didn't work.
that did not work very well.
Went very poorly, and
Yeah.
so we probably won't be doing that again.
Mm-mm.
But we can talk about it in broad strokes, especially getting a perspective of a new player coming into a group of
A new player.
yeah, as opposed to what?
Like me, I played a couple times, but I'm not like I'm new-ish.
Yeah, you're not like a veteran player. You're a
Yeah.
rookie player.
Yeah, it's my rookie year.
He's a new player.
Yeah.
He's like
He just got drafted.
he just got drafted.
Yeah.
He's straight out the draft.
Yeah.
He's he's doing pretty good. It's a pretty good rookie year so far.
Yep,
Picking it up quick. So
Mhm.
that's
It's a banner year, I think.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's gonna be good stuff. Maybe your party won't die.
You know, if like a DM is like, you guys are really strong. You should hit that dragon up, bro.
Well, don't listen to everything the NPCs say.
I know.
Some of them lie to
It's
you.
like, shut up, you don't know anything.
Shut up, Nib. You're little.
I'll squish you.
Your opinion doesn't count because you're shorter than we are. It's
You're
like
shorter and you're a female. Get out of
it's
here.
like that's like the tall guy's like stance. Every tall guy.
Like,
It's
hey.
like, yeah, well, you're whatever, shorty. It's like
like-
that's your comeback.
That's it.
It's like I can see.
Fucking moron.
I can see higher in the room than you can, so I'm better than you. Like, okay, cool.
It's always funny when I'm like Shane, another employee here. He's a lot taller than any of us around here. He's about 6'4".
He's like 6'6".
6'6" or
He's
something
pretty
like
tall.
that.
He's like almost a foot taller than we are.
Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, whenever I'm standing next to him, there's like a automatic thing with a lot of customers, like, oh, this guy's in charge. And it's like, what the fuck? I'm standing there. I ask them, hey, how's it going? And they just go, hey, I was wondering if I was like, what the fuck? Was I just talking to you?
George Washington effect.
Yeah.
It really is. That's why people that are tall have that attitude, because they are used to having people to defer to them.
Yeah.
It's just like if you're really muscly, like if you're really like muscular,
Mhm.
people will just treat you with a lot more like pleasantness because they're just like afraid of you.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is what's happening when you're tall too, is that like people just defer to you. You just seem like you command the room. It's like, no, you can just see more of the room. That's all that
Yes,
is.
my tallest.
Yes, exactly. It's like, hey, my buddy Drew is this way. He's like 6'5", 6'6", something like that. And he's
It's like, this guy must be the leader of the group. Look how tall he is.
yeah, but well, he's really. I don't know how skinny he is anymore. But like when I left Kalamazoo, he weighed I think 10 pounds more than me, and he's 6'5".
Holy shit.
Yeah, he was like
He's a beanpole.
He's like 165 or
Holy
something
fuck.
like that. And he's like fucking just like a foot
Daddy
taller.
long legs.
Yeah, he was like, and it's funny too because when you're skinny like that and you're tall is a distinguishing characteristic. And being really skinny, especially if you have like dark hair, because like a lot of people have dark hair. So he's always getting people like, yeah, I got a buddy that looks just like you, and let me guess, he's just tall and skinny. And it's like, yeah, he's tall and skinny. It's like, yeah, he probably doesn't look like me. You probably just think he does. And I'm like, well, yeah, Drew, because most people's skeletons look pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Right? Like your skeleton, you look like a skeleton that's tall, and so people remember that. It's like...
Oh, it's the Filipino effect. It's like if you're Filipino, you have glasses, like black rimmed glasses and a hat. You look like me.
Goatee.
And a goatee. You
Yeah.
look like me.
Yeah.
And it just works out that way. It's like they show me pictures of them like, we don't look anything alike.
You know,
Get
it's
the
weird.
fuck outta
It's weird.
here.
Like, I noticed the uniform on other people, but I don't think I've met any other Filipinos that I would, like, mistake for you. Like, I think look like you.
But I had I haven't seen him in person, but a lot of people are like, bro. I was driving down the road, and there's some guy on the street, and he looks exactly like you. I'm like, let me guess, he had glasses, a hat, and a goatee. And he was probably Asian? It's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, I get that a lot.
Yeah. Asian, not Oriental.
Yeah, that helps.
It's like, just like, well, he's kind of an Asian, but he's
I'm not from the Orient.
he's a little husky to be like an Asian.
Hey.
You're just not built like a beanpole. Like, it's like, all Asians look the same. It's like, oh, they're all just have the same body type, so that's kind of what you mostly associate people with.
It's like something bright in the room, in every room.
Yeah.
I can't see, bro.
Another one.
Oh, wait, I didn't mean to press that, but yeah.
Another one, what?
I don't know. I accidentally pressed it.
Oh, okay.
All right.
That's
Cool,
fine.
man.
All right, yeah, well, okay. That sums it up. Good times. So next week, Beto.
Yeah, next
Stay-
week,
stay-
Beto,
stay-
and
stay
then
tuned. And maybe
after
Chris.
that, yeah, maybe Chris if we're lucky, and then 2 weeks after that, Sopranos.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like anybody listens to the end, so
Nobody, yeah, no one ever replied to that email where I was like, if you listen to the end.
yeah, I was like, Hope is like, come on, baby, come on. No, didn't happen.
Yeah, heard the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
I busted my buddy's Devin's balls. What'd you guys talk on the podcast this week? I'm like, you could just fucking listen to it.
Uh-huh.
And then you just like changed this topic. I was like, okay.
Yeah, you know, but my earbuds like kind of.
It's like you want to like take once. I don't take an interest in what my friends do, but not enough to actually like be bothered to like sit through an hour of listening to like what it is. It's like, yeah, it's fine. I
Yeah,
get it.
for me, there's like all my friends like, oh my god, like how's the podcast, man? It's like, I don't know, have you listened to it? Like, I don't know, I'm busy, bro.
I like that you do it, but I don't really want.
Yeah, I
to
know that you
consume-
do it.
Yeah.
And I support you, I think.
Yeah.
And then it's like, that's good job.
They support you like in a verbal sense of the word.
Yeah. It's
Like that just will say that I support you.
Yeah.
With like moral support,
Mhm.
but I won't listen to it or like tell other people about it. Like, I'm waiting for the moment when someone like actually like makes some like somebody that I like don't know that well that I like told about the podcast, and they like actually listen to an episode and say something to me about it. It has
Mhm.
not happened yet.
There's one guy that mentioned that he listened to it. He was here in the shop. He's like, hey guys, listen to the podcast. Like, oh, thanks, man. And then that's the only other person I've ever met.
Yeah, but he said he listened to it. He didn't say like, hey, so that thing you guys were talking about.
Yeah,
like,
that
totally,
never happened.
like,
That never happened.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that moment. It's gonna be such a delicious moment.
The only other person is probably your girlfriend that actually probably listens to most of the podcast.
She listens to every podcast,
Uh-huh.
but here's the thing: is like I think
That
she
doesn't
just,
count.
I think she just listens to be supportive
Uh-huh.
because most of the stuff is like stuff I just probably have already ranted to her about at some point or another. Because it's like we just like she's like, oh, what are you talking about on the podcast this week? And I'm like, I don't know. Like here's the she'll start talking to me about stuff. Like
Mhm.
like you can tell she's trying to just like give me ideas like what to talk about. I'm like, you don't have to do that.
Talk about baked goods.
Yeah.
That'd be a good idea for the podcast.
She baked a pie.
Oh. What kind of pie?
A blackberry pie. It doesn't really. I don't know. It's like
I've never heard of a blackberry pie.
It's like an apple pie with blackberries in it.
Never had it.
Oh, it turned out okay. It just doesn't really taste
Are
very.
they really berries?
Blackberries? Yes.
Okay.
Blackberries are actually berries. Oh wait, yes, yes they are. But yeah, it's weird. I don't know. It's like it's not overly sweet though,
Mm.
but it's not really tart either. It's got like this. You can really taste like the lemon zest in it.
Mm.
I don't know. It was her first attempt at a pie. It was okay, but I'm sure she's endeavoring to get better. She's trying harder things
Mhm.
at baking, and so
A souffle?
Not there yet.
A succulent Chinese meal?
No, there's tiers, man. You know, it's like cookies.
Uh-huh.
You know, then you kind of like move your way, gradiate up to like
Fudge.
lemon bars. And then you move up, you know, lemon bars, cheesecake, brownies, and then like the next echelon up is pies.
Mhm.
And then like, you know, quiche and like souffle and shit like that are like at the top. Like
Quiche is up there? I thought quiche is like lower down. That's like...
quiches are pretty difficult to get right, I think. Because you have to, it's just like if you cook, like cooking, I keep wanting to say risotto. Like cooking risotto is really fucking hard because there's a very, very narrow window where
a
it's
fine line.
perfectly done.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to like it's the same thing with like scrambled eggs.
Yeah,
Like,
a lot of people don't know how to cook scrambled eggs.
I guess. I'm good. That's like one of the only things I'm good at cooking. Because I've been cooking scrambled eggs since I was like 9.
Yeah, it's one of the things where that's one of the things you have to pay attention to cooking.
Yeah.
Because once it's done, it's done. You
Yep.
don't want to overdo it. You just got to watch where you're going and just pay attention.
Yep. Yeah.
You can't be doing 20 different things at once.
Yeah.
Then you'll just have like shitty
Shitty everything.
Yeah.
Burn your sausage, flip your hash browns too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Eggs will be all fucked up. Not good.
Yeah.
Not good. But no. That's one thing I can't cook. Scrambled eggs. Breakfast food in general.
You're excellent at it.
I'm excellent.
You're no yolk.
Yeah. It's an extravaganza.
All right. That does it for this week. Anything else?
No, that's all I got.
You know, I don't believe in germs, so don't wash your hands and eat the gabagool.
Okay.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Mikey and the Press Pass podcast. Consider subscribing. You can rate and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere where you can listen to podcasts. And you can also write us with any ideas, suggestions, or horrible burning criticism at mikeyandthepresspass@gmail.com. Thank you.